G'day traders, we're going to wrap up of Thursday the 23rd of August. On the daily charts, we're still continuing to get a bit of a retracement here. So what's happened, how you'd read this is, we've had one, two, three, four, about 4 days, but certainly three fairly solid down days when you look at the overall day, even though within some of those days the cash market did push up, but on an overall sense you can see obviously these candles having a decent retracement. Because we're in a very strong uptrend at the moment, just consider it just some sort of pullback. It's going to look for some sort of support before possibly going higher. And I think as far as it getting down here to 1375, that's a possibility, but wouldn't expect it to come much further than that unless some things really start to change. And then, certainly if they bounce off that and push to that level again, that's going to change the overall scheme of things. But for now, even though these sellers are having a decent go at it, it certainly is just a pullback. So just to bring over the 15-minute charts, always trying to deal with some sort of trend line. At the moment, I could probably add in one here. It's not actually confirmed yet, but it'd be interesting to see if the market comes back and what it does around there. Certainly, if it gets some sort of rejection off that, that's going to really consolidate this trend line, and that will give it a little bit of momentum on the downside. Like we talked about, even though it's in an up market, the sellers will look to try and continue the momentum. As far as the upside, there's nothing really confirming yet. Maybe a trend line up through this, but we've had a really decent push down here now. What's really strong about these sellers is they got to this 1403 and have got underneath it, and you can see last night very much used it as resistance once they got underneath it at the end of the afternoon session there. If you go back through the market, it's not so significant now, but a week or two ago, 1403, here it is here, real key level in the market, just where the market was either pushing down from it or pushing up from it. So markets will certainly remember that, and it's coming into play again. So at the moment, getting resistance from that 1403, and that's a bit of a win for the sellers at the moment in this buyer's trend that we've been having for months and months now. So looking at the 5-minute chart, there was pressure on the downside. It certainly continued that way. You can see pre-market here, you imagine there's a bit of a line there at 1407.50 region. Markets popped up, they've come through that with quite a bit of power. All the markets are pushing through. It's come back almost to the tick, uses resistance, just testing it, and then from there really pushing low. If you watch how all the other markets retraced like this back to this level here, you'll notice they all came back and none of them really broke through the bottom of this pre-market range, especially the Dow Jones. It pushed a long way down and its retracement was very small, so it was very keen on the downside early. So again, looking at those markets can really gauge what they're trying to do, and there's certainly momentum. Even as they're coming back here, there's momentum on the downside. From there, I've got this 1403 marker on the charts. You can see that we've got down underneath that 1403, pushed up through it with quite some power through here, started to get a bit of a move back to the upside, and from there, obviously they're finding a bit of resistance here, so they're coming back up into that region where they originally sold off from at the beginning of the day. Then they started to push down. So from here, a 5-minute sell looked like it could be on the cards, but then all of a sudden momentum changed again and started coming back to the upside, popped down, and through this region here, it doesn't show it so much, but the 1-minute chart shows it better. They started stepping up and really trying to put some momentum back on the upside. You can see the buyers trying to really have a go at it again, and look to come up and test and have a look at this previous little high. They actually broke that high by 1 tick, and it looked an area that was fairly probable to go higher. It certainly wasn't a solid area. If you look at the other markets, the Nasdaq was very keen on the upside, very strong on the upside, and it was pushing right back up almost to its highs. Obviously, as a result of that, the ES has got 1 tick through the area. But if you watch the Russell and the Dow Jones, none of them got past. They were really hanging low and trying to keep some pressure on the downside, and that's eventually who's won out. And they were able to come back at these lows. After coming back at these lows here, you can see the market's basically popped up, then gone through again. So if you look at these regions, as far as breaking the low or breaking the high, so in this particular case, breaking the lows, a lot of the times it can be quite probable. Again, if you're looking at a few, I guess you've got to have a way to gauge it, a systematic approach. There's many different ways to trade the lows or the highs. But for this one here, if you look at the way it pulls back and it comes back at this low for basically the third time. And for me, it's all about, obviously, I talk a lot about the other markets, so I use that as quite a strong indicator. All the other markets are sitting there looking like they want to go as well. None of them are getting, if they're not likely to bounce, or if maybe they're going to get a bit of a reversion back into the trend, you'll see one of the other markets get quite a bit of bounce here and start applying some pressure on these regions here. But all the other markets were coming back at this point, which they pulled back from or retraced from, and all sitting right here ready to go. So even before they broke, and they broke what a good 3-4 points there, all the markets there, and it became quite probable is probably the word that the odds were more likely to go than bounce here at this stage here. And especially, I always look at it as threes too. If you see the market come at something a third time, so we've made a point here, and then a third point here. Again, more times than not, they'll go. So good one there as far as breaking down. And then market's starting to get extended. Where I've got another key level just drawn in here. Just it's basically a strong support and resistance area that the market's been using of recent times. So this is where they started to turn around, and through this point here again, we started to get some holding formations. Then started breaking up here, pull back. When this market pulled back and went like this, and again broke this area by one tick, is an area just looked like possibly it could get some momentum and start heading back to the upside. You can see, but all to the tick, 1403's held again as resistance. But again, it just couldn't get the momentum it wanted from the other markets. If you see all the other markets breaking this point, that's when it's going to step on through and get some momentum through. But again, some of the markets were, some of them were holding right back. So it was a bit of a mixed bag there and it's been happening for the last couple of days where the markets are caught sort of toing and froing with each other. Some are keen on the upside, some are keen on the downside, and they're just not working together like they do. So yeah, to the tick, 0.03 is held, and then from there we push down a little bit to finish, almost at those lows. So flipping over to this 1 minute chart here. So here's this pre-market low. The market's come down, bounce off the power point, come back, uses resistance, pre-market, and then it's pushed lower. Then the market started pulling back. It's through this region here, so looking at a pullback here, and then thinking, okay, is this market going to go down? Look at its lows, and all of a sudden, see the price action change. Comes up, makes a high, comes back, makes a higher high again, then breaks through. Quite a strong pivotal point here, and this is where you're watching other markets, and it looked, at the time watching it, I thought it had a good chance of going just because the Nasdaq was so strong. But like I said, the Russell and Dow Jones just weren't keen. So as a result, the markets were able to turn themselves around, push back down low. This is where they're getting a bit of a bounce and coming at this low a third time, and then see when you all of a sudden see a strength. So this candle here through the lows like that. Whenever I'm dealing around lows or any areas like this, I look for sort of price, and then price to really push through with strength, or sorry, strength to push through the price, meaning sort of there's a bit of support here at 1402. That's kind of the question mark, is it going to be able to break? Then you see it push through with some strength there. That's a good almost 2 point candle. Okay, then it pops back, uses resistance, and then goes lower from. So there was indications here, plus the other markets, that this market was going lower. From there, they pushed another 3-4 points through that low, and this is when they started to get some, I guess, trying to build something towards the upside. A very sideways range here at the time. It was looking like the market was really going to start to die off because we had some slower afternoons. But notice, I mean, even just with this market for the last couple of days, we've been coming back off the highs, how much instantly it livens these markets up. When they're going at their highs and right at their highs, it slows everything down. But when you get a retracement, it's fantastic for trading because all of a sudden the volume and the liveliness comes back to the market. And it was this area here that showed some power and started to get some formations, like wanted to head high. You see we've broken in this range, pushed up, come back, used the top of that range as support, and then looked to push higher, broke through by a tick. So from there it could have got some momentum to keep going, but in the end some of these other markets, again the Russell has dragged it down, and they've not managed to go higher, and they've finished off at the lows. So that's a wrap up for Thursday. We'll speak to you guys on Friday.